American Top 40.
Now an AT40 debut tune, a first hit for a singer-songwriter from Pennsylvania who got his inspiration for this song from his love for the game of pool and nearly got killed for it. He was born in South Philadelphia 29 years ago, and as a teenager he enjoyed playing pool. To watch the pros, he would often visit a well-known pool hall in Philadelphia where he could always expect to see some of the region's best players in action. Well, one night he walked in to watch and got some unexpected action of his own. He said something to a stranger. The stranger said something back. Our teenager said something else, and the stranger stopped talking. Instead, he gave our boy a shove, which sent him down 2 flights of concrete stairs. Well, through some kind of miracle, his injuries were only moderate, and his memory of that pool hall atmosphere and the characters who hung out there inspired him 11 years later to write the song that has now become his first hit. A song about a guy who winds up the loser in a pool room fight. Debuting at number 31, here's singer Jim Croce and his story about pool hustler Jim Walker. And there's the highest debuting record of the week in American Top 40. Coming in at number 31, Jim Croce from South Philadelphia. And you don't mess around with Jim.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now on AT40, the current hit by the Philadelphia singer-songwriter whose first album 3 years ago was such a flop that he quit the music business and became a full-time truck driver. Back in 1969, he and his wife sang as a duo in New York City coffee houses. They were discovered by a couple of record producers who urged them to come to California and cut an album. Well, they did, and the album bombed. In fact, it did so badly that it convinced them to get out of the music business completely. So they moved back to their home state of Pennsylvania and settled down in Lindell. Andy took a job driving a big quarry truck, you know, the kind with air brakes that go choo-choo in a 15-speed gearbox. Well, for a while they were very happy and didn't miss the music business, until the itch came back a few months later. He stayed with it this time, and it paid off with a song that hit the top 10 a few weeks ago. This week, it's at number 33. Here's that truck-driving, pool-shooting son of a gun, Jim Croce.
Uptown got its hustlers.
Jim Croce took that record all the way up to number 8 for a couple of weeks. Now at number 33, you don't mess around with Jim. This is Casey on AT40, and here's a letter that says, Dear Casey, what artist had hits on the chart the most years in a row? The question is from Illinois. The answer is not Elvis Presley. Details coming up.
The hits from coast to coast.
And now the second hit within 2 months from an album that 12 big record companies in a row had turned down. The artist, a singer and songwriter from South Philadelphia, recorded the album about a year ago for a pair of highly respected producers, Terry Cashman and Tommy West. They sing also, and you've heard them on American Top 40. But when the three of them took their master tape around to the record companies looking for a distribution deal, they couldn't find any takers. A couple of labels turned them down because they thought the singer sounded too much like James Taylor. And a couple of others felt that the songs just weren't heavy enough. And a few others weren't even willing to take a chance with an unknown artist. So, in the space of 7 months, a total of 12 record companies had turned down the chance to release the album. But the 13th company, ABC Dunhill, wanted it. And the LP was finally released last spring, reaching the top 30 on the album chart, while its title tune, released as a single, made the top 10 2 months ago. It was called You Don't Mess Around with Jim. And now the second hit from that album debuts in our top 40 at number 35. Here's Jim Croce. Operator, that's not the way it feels. She's living in L.A. with my best old ex-friend, Ray. Operator, that's not the way it feels. At number 35, Jim Croce, and the countdown rolls on.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood, and now, the hit by the singer-songwriter who went through Army basic training twice. Not because he liked it, but because his officers didn't laugh when he was trying to be funny. You see, a few years ago, he enlisted in the Pennsylvania National Guard and began the usual 8-week basic training course at Fort Jackson. And he decided to make it fun for himself. So one day, he wrote some funny slogans and posted them around on the bulletin board. Slogans like, half the Army reads comic books, and the other half looks at the pictures. And he did some other weird things, too, that the Army thought was kind of strange. Well, one day he went too far. He saluted a high-ranking officer with a shovel instead of a rifle. And the Army threw their clown into a special section for attitude and discipline problems. Well, after a month of the punishment, they offered him another chance. So he went through basic training a second time, played it straight, and eventually got an honorable discharge. Here he is at number 37 this week, the man who flunked basic training, Jim Croce.
In the morning.
From 39 to 38 to this week 37, Jim Croce and one less set of footsteps.
Number 36.
This is Casey in Hollywood, an American Top 40, and now I have the hit by the artist who started out as a school teacher, but had that notion knocked out of him pretty quick by one of his pupils. I'm talking about Jim Croce. A few years ago, right after getting out of the Army, he got a job teaching in special education in a ghetto school in Chester, Pennsylvania. And naturally, as the newest member of the faculty, he got stuck with the class that none of the other teachers wanted, the class made up of the kids who were hard to handle. Don't worry about it, the principal told him. All you have to do is keep them in their seats and show them who's boss, and you'll do okay. And Croce did okay for a couple of months, keeping the students in their seats most of the time and getting used to breaking up fights between them. In fact, he did a pretty good job for a guy who stands about 5'7" and weighs maybe 140 pounds. Then one day, one of the students challenged his authority. A girl student. A girl who weighed about 260 pounds. In Jim's words, she was a very heavy-duty mama, and she just laid that big arm across the side of my head, and I just went about 8 or 10 feet. Well, that's when he changed his mind about teaching and got into the music business. Doing pretty good, too. His fourth top 40 hit this week becomes the number one song in America. Jim Croce and Bad Bad Leroy Brown. Last week at number 3, now the new number 1 song in the land. That's Jim Croce's Bad Bad Leroy Brown. You know, back around the first of the year, we began our weekly prediction of the song we thought would become number 1 the following week. And maybe some of you have been playing along with us. So far, we've made 19 correct predictions, and we've missed 9. For a prediction percentage of 679, in case you're keeping score. For next week, our pick to be number 1 is again Jim Croce's Bad Bad Leroy Brown. You've just heard the biggest selling hits in America for the past week on American Top 40. My name's Casey Kasem, and we do our countdown every week at this time. Our list of the Top 40 comes from Billboard's Record Survey for the week ending July 21st, 73. AT40 is produced and distributed by Watermark Incorporated. Head of research on the East Coast, Alan Kaltman. Producer, Don Bastani. We tape the show here in Hollywood. Join me next week, and we'll do it again. Till then, keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Here now on AT40 is a debut song that leaped from number 48 on the Hot 100 all the way to number 18 this week. Pretty phenomenal. It sort of sets a record of sorts. You see, Jim Croce died in a plane crash just last September. He had recorded some songs before his death that hadn't been released. The record I just mentioned is a sad one. It marked the first time that an artist posthumously has had 2 records in the top 20 at the same time. The other hit is a little higher up in the countdown, and we'll be hearing it as well. But for now, here's the late Jim Croce with the highest debuting song of the week, Time in a Bottle. Debuting at number 18, the late Jim Croce with Time in a Bottle. Not 5 minutes ago, we heard Jim Croce sing one of 2 hit songs. Here's his other.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road.
Jim Croce, I Got a Name. This week at number 16 in our countdown.
The hits from coast to coast.